All right, welcome everybody to another episode here on the Digital Trade Show podcast. We are live in Orlando, Florida at the Profitable Dentist Convention. Yeah. And I am with Kelly Kunkel from ForwardScience.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. We've got a lot of people walking around here.
Lots going on here, yeah. Very exciting.
So I am very excited to learn more about ForwardScience and what you guys are doing. Sure. and all that cool stuff. If we could, maybe start a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I've been in the dental career my whole field, so 20 years in the dental field, and something that I kind of stumbled into, but I love it. I've done everything in the field, pretty much from being in the dental office, which is where I started out. I was lucky enough to work for a doctor who was very progressive and introduced me to a lot of things early on that really just developed my passion for the dental field. And as I moved along, I ended up getting into marketing and sales. And about 5 years ago, I ran across ForwardScience. I had never heard of the company, never heard of the products. And I ended up meeting the CEO, Robert Whitman, and by the end of that weekend, I knew that this is what I was going to be doing, and that was 5 years ago.
Okay, so, awesome,
yeah.
So talk a little bit about ForwardScience and maybe, exactly what you guys do and how you help the dental practice and things like that.
So ForwardScience, our flagship product, most people know us for the Oral ID.
Okay.
So the Oral ID is an oral cancer screening device for the dental office. It's typically used in hygiene. It's something that it's fluorescence technology, and it allows clinicians to be able to see anything abnormal, whether that be cancer or anything at all in its earliest stages that needs to be identified and then treated early.
Right.
So typically the problem is by the time we see oral cancer, it's in its later stages. So this is going to help identify those things that can't be seen with the naked eye much earlier to hopefully not only save lives, but improve quality of life for patients by finding it early.
Absolutely.
So ForwardScience, we are in the oral oncology market, and that is all we do. Unlike some of the other products that are out there, this is all we do. We don't sell 3,000 other products, or oral oncology is our passion. So we started with the Oral ID 5 years ago. It's still our main product, but we've since developed into having a complete program to be able to offer people that goes into testing and treatment options. So when you partner with ForwardScience and Oral ID, it really is all-inclusive.
Mm-hmm. I love to hear stories about, for example, so when this first came out, and you were in practices, you were introducing it.
Right.
Talk a little bit about some of the initial feedback from a lot of these offices, especially when you bring something new like this and there's that awareness.
Sure.
You know?
And that, that's the majority of what we do is educating.
Yeah.
So, a lot of offices, they just have this belief, number one, that, there's a lot of false positive. That's still something that we hear all the time. The big thing about these devices is that it's not diagnostic. It's simply discovery. So this is allowing clinicians to be able to see, again, those things that they can't see with the naked eye. Just because you see an area that's dark doesn't mean that it's cancer. So a lot of people, they get into this misconception of, oh, there's so many false positives, or, those things aren't reliable. There was a study an article that recently came out from the ADA talking about the validity of these type of devices and how, they're not really accurate. The thing is, if you dig into it a little more, it talks about how using these devices after you see something, there's no real benefit. And the thing is, we agree with that. We don't want you to use it when you've already seen something with the naked eye. That defeats the whole purpose.
Right.
The purpose of this is to be able to identify those things that you can't see, or something that may be very small, and when you use the device, illuminates it even more so that we know there's definitely more going on.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything else, right, Kelly? It's like setting that expectation. A lot of times a company brings a product to the market and people get excited about it and they want it to do everything.
Yes.
They mean, I don't have to do this or worry about this. Not always the case. I mean, obviously that product serves its purpose.
Right.
And I'm sure for the practices that love it and embrace it, that's how they would use it, right? I mean, they don't, their expectation is not that it's going to diagnose, they just helps them discover things.
It's one more thing to really just help advance the level of service that they're offering their patients.
Sure.
It's one more thing to help differentiate their practice, to set them apart from the rest, because it is technology that not everybody is using, but patients are starting to hear more and more about oral cancer. It's in the news.
Yeah.
Celebrities, sports figures, a lot of people are coming out and talking about it, and patients are being more educated, and they're stepping up and they're asking for these type of technologies and services in offices. So
if you don't have it, that's kind of a tough spot to be in as a provider, right? You're now all of a sudden your patient comes in and they're asking, you're like, oh crap, we might want to look into this. Yeah.
We just had an office last week that actually came on board with us, and they said that just in the last few weeks, they've had a couple of phone calls, for patients asking what they're using for oral cancer screening. So again, it's great. And that's one of the biggest hurdles too, is public education. We have in just about every other cancer, the numbers are declining. And that's because of public awareness. There's a lot of awareness around breast cancer, for example. In October, everything is pink. Even the NFL, everything goes pink, which is great, because then, women are more apt to go out and get their mammograms, and, with all these other cancers. But the problem is we need to educate the public about oral cancer and the changing demographics, and that it's not only the smokers and drinkers and patients over 40 as of the past.
Right.
With HPV now, everyone needs to be screened, and that's the fastest growing demographic. So it's really educating not only the offices but the public and what they need to ask for when they go into a dental office.
Hearing you say that, it's such a different dynamic now for practices, because there was a time when solely the education came from the providers.
Right.
And you went in as a patient, the access wasn't there to learn.
Right.
So everything you wanted to get was from your provider.
Yes. You were relying on them.
You were relying on
that.
And not the case anymore.
Right. And social media has a lot to do with that.
No question.
And good or bad, of course, just like, it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
But, the public is more aware and more educated, and they are asking and demanding these services that they know are available, and that can help benefit them.
What else you got there on the?
So again, the oral ID is our main product, and the other product that we about 2 years ago have recently brought to market. So one of the things with ForwardScience is, again, we are in the oral oncology space. We work with a lot of the top oncology centers in the country, and being in there, talking to clinicians, hearing feedback, we just hear a lot about what they need and what their needs are, what they're seeing, and maybe what products they could use, that there's nothing that's really great in that space. So in doing so, we're owned and run by two biomedical engineers that love to create new things, but we like to create things that serve a need.
Sure.
And so in going into these centers, we kept hearing from a lot of oncologists that mucositis is a big issue in oncology. And there just wasn't anything that really was helping those patients. Also with dry mouth, post-treatment, post-chemo radiation, dry mouth is going to be an issue for pretty much the rest of their lives. And there just wasn't a great solution. So our founders went ahead and created Saliva Max. And this is a prescription product, super easy to use. It's a powder that they're going to mix with an ounce of water. Patients then just rinse with it. They rinse with half of it for a minute, spit it out, and then repeat with the other half. And it's non-systemic, and it really helps not only those mucositis patients in the oncology space, but also any level of dry mouth. So not only with cancer patients, but also in the dental world, there's just so much dry mouth from medications and age and different diseases and everything else. And so it's really been a benefit, because a lot of people or a lot of offices are still suggesting over-the-counter products simply because they don't know what else to use.
Right.
And so, people get really excited about this because they have the over-the-counter products that they recommend, but they're just not really effective.
Sure.
So once they see and hear the feedback from the patients and how this really changes lives, patients who, for instance, have had to butter their pills to be able to swallow their pills at night. I mean, just think about that image.
Yeah.
To now using this and being able to not have to do that anymore. Just the quality of life that it provides patients is amazing.
You know what's so cool when you said that, you guys found a need out there, and when you do have two individuals that started your company that have that skill set and that background, for them to just be like, okay, let's go make it.
Right.
I love that. I think, like you said, there's always two sides of it, because I'm sure in their laboratory have all these things they want to create, and sometimes there's needs and sometimes there's not.
Right.
But for them, for you guys to be able to identify something and then have them figure out a way, that's pretty cool too.
We have another product going to be introduced in the next few months. Can't talk too much about it. We're just waiting on the FDA for that, and should be out. But again, same thing. There's a need for it. It's along the same lines as the products that we put out. And the great thing is that we are, ForwardScience is based in Houston, Texas. We have a 19,000 square foot facility. We manufacture everything in-house. So we have complete control over everything. And it's great because, again, where other companies and other products may have shortages or run out, we have that control. And again, since this is all we do, this is our passion. We take care of our customers, who then, in turn are taking care of their patients. And we're really making a difference. And we love to hear those stories. The feedback is what keeps us going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even the guys in the warehouse, in our weekly meetings, they are told the stories that we hear and the feedback.
That's cool.
And that keeps those guys who don't get to see, and hear those stories from the offices or the patients, that keeps them going too.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think so often, I have to say, one of the driving forces for me even wanting to start this podcast after selling products for many years is that I know that the dental teams appreciate companies and the reps, but until you are on both sides of it and you realize all of the work and all of the thought process going, like you said, going all the way back to the individuals in the warehouse. It matters. It matters to those people. And I really wanted dental professionals to learn and understand from you guys, so that they understand that this right here is only the end, right? And there's a whole, and I think something like this, where the patients use it and they need it, if it's not available, to your point, then that can kind of throw them off as well. And certainly that sounds like the investments that you guys have made in order to be able to make sure that they have that.
Absolutely.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And we know, again, those are things that are all around our facility, those quotes. And those are things that we really take to heart. And when we hear, one of the biggest compliments that we could hear from offices or, the teams that we work with is they all see and know the passion that we all have for the products we make, the services that we provide. And sadly, but it can be rare in all fields. But again, being in the dental field for so long, sometimes the bigger you get and the more products you have and everything, you lose sight of certain things. And that's why we like to be in this small space where this is all we do, and we have a really good handle, and we've kind of set the standard in the industry for oral cancer.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I just got thinking about the name too. ForwardScience. There is no time to slow down and to not be, progressive and things like that, which is super cool. So I see something else that you have there. I don't know if that was just...
So one of the things I just wanted to talk about, so, most people, again, know us for the oral ID, the device itself, but we don't stop there with that. So we've created a program. We don't want to just sell a device or a product and then be gone. We truly partner with our offices. So we want to take it a step further, and we have a complete program that we offer. So it's something that they get the device, but then again, this is something that we want to help educate the public. And oral cancer is typically not a fun, topic, but we try to make it as fun, I guess, as you can.
Yeah.
So we have different things, and I just brought an example of, some of our social signs that patients can hold up, and we help offices and how to post it to their social media pages. But different things, like this, we have a whole campaign. So April is Oral Cancer Awareness Month. So part of, what we send to our offices on a regular basis is social media content. So they get a box with all these different signs. We have all different color lips that, patients can hold up, offices could really get involved in. Again, sharing this on their social media pages, tagging patients, getting people spreading that awareness. Just one of the things that we really help them do, and they really get into it and they love it. And then again, it's just spreading the word.
Yeah.
So
yeah. What do you love best about what you do?
Gosh, I think just it's always changing. It never stops. I've been with the company almost since we launched the oral ID. We got our FDA clearance in March of 2013. I came on board in October of that year, and the growth that I've seen has just been crazy. And the cool thing too is that the growth that we've had has mainly been through word of mouth. I mean, we do very little advertising,
right.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. But the growth, and then again, just the people that we're able to help, patients, and then also in the dental office, and even outside of that, the lives that we're changing with people that work on our team, and showing them kind of a different. We hear so many times like, "Wow, this is really cool what we have here."
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's awesome.
It's fun.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So how can people learn more about you guys? A great website, if you want to let everybody know that.
Yeah, so ForwardScience.com, that's our website, and that's where they can go on, request more information, a demo, some samples of the Saliva Max.
Okay.
Everything can be found there, or ForwardScience.com.
Awesome. So be sure to check it out.
Yeah,
Forward Science.
for sure.
I love it. Great stuff.
Yeah.
How about some fun questions?
Okay. Sure.
So if there was a song that best described, or like a genre of music that best described like you, your career, what you're doing right now with Forward Science, what would it be?
Ooh, I tend to go back to the 80s. And
Love
my kids
the
always
80s.
laugh at me, but
Love
and
it.
I was one of those people that when I was growing up, my parents listened to the oldies, and I was, in the back seat rolling my eyes. I said, I'll never do that. I listen to the 80s all the time just because that's my music, and it really tells a story.
Yeah.
I can't understand half of the words in songs today, and the messages are horrible.
Right. I have to give a shout out to Rita Zamora, who owns her own social media company. She is awesome, and we had talked on the podcast, and we kind of went back and forth about 80s music, and like we miss it. There was just great music and stuff like that. So
right. And good messages back then, too.
Yeah.
I mean, some maybe not so much.
Right.
I mean, for the most part, it was certainly not what we hear today.
Yeah, it was a really, I mean, if you think about music in the 70s and then the 90s, 80s was a real kind of transition of kind of where things went. So
for sure.
Interesting. How about your favorite day of the week?
Ooh. That's tough, because during the week, the majority of my work is from home.
Yeah.
So I like that time during the week when my kids are in school, my husband is working. I get to do what I love, working from home, and I have two little four-legged assistants at home that work with me all day. But then weekends are fun too. I have two kids, 10 and 12. They're both very active into sports, and so it's kind of that shift from mom to on the business side. But if I had to pick a day, I'd probably say Friday. So I get the best of both worlds.
Right, it's the bridge to the next one.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How about with the dental practices that you've worked with and a lot of the things that you've seen, let's say there was somebody out there that wanted to be a rep in the dental industry.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a particular product or a company, but with your experience, what would you share with them? What would you say to them as far as, from what you've learned, just some good, bits of advice?
Yeah. I think, especially from what I've seen, because I do a lot of the recruiting too for our sales team with our company, we have a unique culture, so we really, look for specific things. And so many of the companies are just so focused on experience, and a lot of young people who really want to get into sales, especially even some clinical people like hygienists who want to get into sales. Right. They have a hard time because they don't have that 5 years sales experience or whatever it is. But one of the things that we do is we look more for personality and desire and all of that, because we know we can teach a lot of that clinical stuff, but finding the people who share our passion and who have that work ethic and who want to develop relationships rather than just sell a product. It's unique to find. And so, I mean, as far as any advice, I would say look really take a deep look at the company. And because hopefully when you're looking for a new career or to get into sales or anything like that, it is something that you're looking to do long term, and look at the company and see the culture. I mean, there's such a wide variety, when it comes to that in different companies. So,
well, they're obviously doing a good job at ForwardScience.
Yeah.
You certainly have a lot of passion and motivation, for that, and it's exciting to hear you talk about that experience versus passion and desire, because I couldn't agree with you more. I think that a lot of these things, that in particular, you could teach the features and benefits of
Absolutely.
it. But what's really difficult is to find someone who's willing to go out Monday through Friday, go to a lot of people, want to have them share that message, and be persistent, and that's very, very hard to find. So,
and have the personality to connect with our offices. Again, we're not the hard sell kind of company who's just going to go in there. We want someone who can educate and develop relationships, because we truly do partner with our offices long term. And going back to the beginning of my career, I had just graduated college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually started grad school for education and realized pretty quickly that wasn't something I thought I wanted to do. And there was an ad for a dentist, and I remember, and this still stays with me 20 years later, but the ad was more about desire and personality and all of that. And he always said we could teach anybody, the clinical stuff, or how to, present treatment, or all of that kind of stuff. But you can't teach someone work ethic. You can't teach someone personality. Those are traits that they either have or they don't. So, and we still look at that, to this day. We have, some clinical people that if they have that right mix, they're a great fit, because they have the clinical background, they have the stories, they have the education, and if they have the right work ethic and all of that, that's a perfect mix. But it's not always easy to find that right combination. So we really look at a lot of different things. Again, I think we're a little bit different in what we look for, and we've had a lot of success in doing it that way. Some failures too, like everybody does. But
absolutely. Awesome. This has been great. Thank you so much.
I was
excited to learn more about ForwardScience and what you guys did, and so this has been super educational. And I hope for everybody out there, please check out ForwardScience and learn more about what they're doing. Great stuff. And Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much for
appreciate
having me.
it. Yeah,
Thanks.
excellent.